Here we'll focus on stem cells. I'll just talk briefly about what a stem cell is in general. We'll have a look at a few of the different types and a little bit of how they can be used. But we'll keep it fairly brief. Essentially, a stem cell is a generalized cell that still has the capability of differentiating into another kind of cell in the body. So a stem cell doesn't have any particular function, doesn't have any specialized function. It ultimately has the destiny to turn itself into a specialized cell. The first stem cells that are produced after fertilization in the body are our embryonic stem cells. So the embryonic stem cells or ESCs, embryonic stem cells, ESCs, are the ones that are produced by fertilizing the egg. So essentially you're talking about the zygote, or just the cells that are produced just after the development of the zygote into a blastocyst, and we'll have a look at that in just a minute. These embryonic stem cells are described as totipotent, meaning that they have the potential to be able to turn into any other kind of cell in the body. They can differentiate ultimately into any other kind of cell. So they're the most powerful of the stem cells, embryonic stem cells. Embryonic stem cells, though, ultimately turn into what are called pluripotent stem cells, which have a slightly reduced ability to turn into other cells in the body. And pluripotent stem cells lead to the stem cells that give rise to our blood, red blood cells and white blood cells. So the pluripotent stem cells, or the PSCs, can turn into the blood stem cells, or they can turn into the stem cells that give rise to the other tissues in the body, such as muscle, nerve, bone, and other tissues. So we've got totipotent and pluripotent stem cells. Here's another diagram illustrating that scheme and showing pluripotent stem cells. Again, those pluripotent stem cells come from the blastocyst stage of embryonic development. So you have your fertilized egg, your 8-cell embryo stage. Remember, the in vivo fertilized egg is totipotent. It can become anything. The blastocyst, the cells taken from the blastocyst here are pluripotent, and those stem cells can form the blood cells, cardiac, muscle, neural cells, and a range of other cells in tissue. Then I'll just take a quick look at how embryonic stem cells can be sourced, and I'll show you another diagram just after that showing how pluripotent stem cells can also be gained through an induced process. So one way that embryonic stem cells can be made is through the resources of in vitro fertilization clinics. And of course this is ethically or morally debatable as to whether this is good or bad or right or wrong, but purely from a biological point of view, let's just have a look at this process. So to have a go at making embryonic stem cells, ESCs, the process that is outlined here is that an egg cell is taken from a donor and the nucleus is removed from that egg cell. And then DNA from an adult cell is injected into that human egg cell, so that that egg cell now has the full complement of DNA from an adult. The egg then begins to divide, forming a very early mass of cells, usually the 8-cell stage. After 5 days it forms into this blastocyst, which is a hollow embryonic ball of cells, and it's the inner cell mass in here that is the source for embryonic stem cells. So they can be harvested, so the stem cells can be harvested and then the embryo destroyed, and of course it's the destruction of the embryo that poses moral issues for a number of people. So this can be a way of sourcing embryonic stem cells for future research or investigating therapeutic applications. Now have a look at how you can induce pluripotent cells from other cells in an adult body. It's possible to actually work backwards to produce pluripotent cells. So rather than deriving them from embryonic stem cells, which often then requires a source of embryonic stem cells, which can lead to the death of an embryo, this is the production of pluripotent cells from an adult. And so here a biopsy is done, which is a sampling of cell tissue. So adult cells, for example skin fibroblast cells, are removed from an adult body, and then a number of reprogramming factors that have been discovered are added to the mix. Sorry about that. So reprogramming factors are added to the adult cells, and this induces those cells to become pluripotent. So these are often called induced pluripotent stem cells. Induced pluripotent stem cells, iPSCs. So these, or IPSs as they're sometimes called, so induced pluripotent stem cells. They resemble embryonic stem cells, but they haven't been sourced from embryonic stem cells. They come from somatic cells of an adult. So these induced pluripotent stem cells can then be used for gene correction, as you can see down here. So they can be used to investigate gene therapy. They can be differentiated to produce specialized tissue, which can then be transplanted back into an adult body. And we'll have a look at some of the applications for that in a moment. They could also be used in further research to investigate models for drug discovery to combat various diseases. So these induced pluripotent stem cells have lots of possible pathways for use in medical research. We'll finish the tutorial just by having a look at some of the potential applications for stem cell therapy. So the therapeutic application of stem cell research. Let's just have a quick look. On the right here we can see a number of potential areas for this therapy. So everything from baldness through to blindness, deafness, myocardial infarctions, diabetes, spinal cord injuries, wound healing, missing teeth, traumatic brain injury, Alzheimer's disease. The range of possibilities seems quite enormous. I don't think we're quite there yet in terms of applying stem cell therapy to these areas, although I think early research into application in Parkinson's disease has been promising, and a number of other areas. I'll just clear this for a second. Push this one out of the way and just have a look at this. Again, this diagram shows something similar to what we've been talking about. So just remembering, but the whole point of stem cells is they act as the kind of building blocks for the entire human body. The original totipotent embryonic stem cell that ultimately gives rise to every specialized cell in a full adult human body. So every cell is derived from that original single cell. It has the potential to become any and every cell in the body. That's why it's totipotent. And so, again, if you just take a moment to pause the tutorial, you can have a look through this and just see some of the possibilities for stem cell therapy in terms of ultimately dealing with a number of very significant human disease conditions.